Davidson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. On Tuesday, the Chief Executive of the SNP, Peter Murrell, gave evidence under oath to the Parliamentary Committee investigating the Scottish Government's botched handling of harassment allegations against Alex Salmond. That evidence plainly contradicted the First Minister's own version of events. So whose story does the First Minister find most believable, Peter Murrell's or her own?
First Minister.
I've already set out the reasons for and circumstances of my meeting with Alex Salmond in written evidence. In a few weeks' time, I will answer questions in person to the committee on these matters. And the fact is, only I can do that. Only I can set out the circumstances, the reasons for the decisions that I have made. The fact of the matter is, my husband had no role in these meetings. He had no role in the matters under investigation by the committee. Ruth Davidson might want to attack my husband and use him as a weapon against me. People will draw their own conclusions about that, but it doesn't change the basic fact of the matter that he had no role in these issues.
Ruth Davidson.
Presiding Officer, I'm asking about this because a group of women who came forward were utterly let down by the First Minister's government, and the fallout from that is still going on. And if the First Minister doesn't want to answer for the consequences of her government's actions, then shame on her. And, Presiding Officer, like many members of this Parliament, I am in awe of the First Minister's ability to believe that two completely opposing versions of events can somehow be explained away so easily. So let's get back to the evidence that was given to a parliamentary committee. And in his evidence, Mr Murrell said, under oath, that the issue that was raised with Nicola at the time was a Scottish Government matter. However, the First Minister has repeatedly claimed that the meetings were in a party/personal capacity. These statements are clearly contradictory. They cannot simply both be correct. So, First Minister, which one of them is in fact true?
First Minister.
The thing is, Ruth Davidson is wrong in what she opened that question with. I do want to answer. I haven't yet had the opportunity to sit before the committee and answer. I will get that opportunity in a few weeks, and not only am I obliged to do that, but I'm keen to do that. I have set out the answers to the questions that Ruth Davidson has asked me in my written evidence. I've set out what I thought might raise immediate implications for my party in the meeting I had with Alex Salmond, and why that turned out not to be the case. After that, my priority was protecting the confidentiality and the integrity of the process. Now, the committee will have the opportunity to question me on that, and it's right and proper they do so. It is because I do care about the implications of this, both for women who came forward with complaints and for any women who might feel the need to come forward with complaints in the future. This is an inquiry into an investigation of sexual harassment, and that is why we should all treat it seriously. But those who choose instead to indulge wild conspiracy theories, I think, make it less likely rather than more likely that we learn the lessons of that. But the fact of the matter is, it is for me to answer because I am the leader of this government. My husband is not a member of my government. He had no role in these matters. It is for me to answer, and that's exactly what I will do.
Ruth Davidson.
Presiding Officer, under oath, the Chief Executive of the SNP, as the First Minister has said was her husband, I was using his professional term, says the meetings were government business. But in written testimony, the head of Scotland's government says they were SNP business. And Nicola Sturgeon seems to think that all of our heads button up the back here, because here's what we're being asked to accept. That the Chief Executive of the SNP popped his head round the door to find the First Minister of Scotland, coincidentally his wife, her predecessor, Alex Salmond, his Chief of Staff, her Chief of Staff and Mr Salmond's lawyer, all sitting unannounced in his living room. And he never asks a single question, then or since, of what that's all about. And this morning, we now learn that Angus Robertson, a former deputy leader to Nicola Sturgeon, was told 11 years ago of alleged inappropriateness by Mr Salmond. 11 years. And I take it the First Minister's line is that she had no idea about that either. Another allegation that just passed her by. Does she really think That sounds plausible. And is it seriously what the First Minister is asking us to believe?
First Minister.
Yes, because it happens to be the truth. And that may not... That may not suit what Ruth Davidson wants to be the situation, but I'm afraid that is the situation. And on the issue of conversations or lack of conversations between me and my husband, I sometimes wonder if the opposition here is revealing more about themselves than they are about me. And I heard the reaction across the chamber. The fact of the matter is I am First Minister of Scotland. I deal with confidential matters every single day of my life. These range from national security matters through to market-sensitive commercial matters and a whole range of things in between. I don't gossip about these things, even to my husband. I am the First Minister of the country, not the office gossip, and I take my responsibilities in that role extremely seriously.
Ruth Davidson.
But the thing is, Presiding Officer, Mr Murrell didn't just contradict the First Minister, he contradicted himself. First, he claimed he had no prior knowledge of the First Minister's meeting with Mr Salmond at their house, only to later admit that he'd known about it the night before. And it's all part of a piece of a First Minister who forgot about a meeting that she'd had with Mr Salmond's Chief of Staff, where he discussed allegations of a sexual nature, who omitted even to acknowledge the existence of that meeting until it was revealed in a court of law, and who told BBC viewers that she didn't know of any stories around Mr Salmond before he told her, only then to admit that she'd actually been informed months before. And there's a pattern here of sharp brains suddenly turning blank, of contradictions piling up, of half-answers having to be dragged out of people who should know better. The First Minister and the Chief Executive of the SNP are intelligent, experienced political operatives. But on this one issue, why is it that they can't get their story straight?
First Minister.
Well, I don't accept that that is the case. Let me set out very clearly the situation that transpired back when the Scottish Government developed a process in the wake of all of the Me Too revelations. My priority was to make sure that my government had in place a process that would allow complaints to be investigated without fear or favour. I think that was the right thing to do. When complaints came forward, the Scottish Government was right to investigate them, regardless of who the complaints were about. When I became aware of those complaints, my priority was to protect the integrity and the confidentiality of that process. It is right and proper that the committee scrutinises the Scottish Government's handling of this matter and scrutinises my actions and decisions. I have no complaint about any of that. That's why I've put forward written evidence, and it is why I look forward, actually, if that is not a strange way of putting it, to the opportunity to sit in front of the committee and answer any questions that the committee has. It is for me and the Scottish Government to do that. And I understand why Ruth Davidson wants to drag my husband into these matters, but the fact of the matter is he had no role in the matter. It is for me to answer these questions, and that is exactly what I will continue to do.